Welcome to Emtron Training Part 9. In this training tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at setting up our advanced analog inputs. Our advanced analog inputs are things like fuel pressure, oil temperature, switched type inputs, or even custom inputs that we're able to define, something like coolant pressure, for example. We're going to take a look at a couple of different examples, how to set up and working with our advanced analog inputs in our training tutorial. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at setting up our advanced analog inputs with our Emtron system. Advanced analog inputs will be things like our Lambda sensor, oil pressure, fuel pressure, oil temperature. It can also be related to things like our switched type of input. So AC switch, clutch switch. There's a lot of things that are to be categorized in the advanced analog type of inputs. And I'm going to be calling advanced analog inputs anything that's going to be outside of the basic inputs that we've covered in the last video. The basic sensor inputs that we have to have in order to make the engine run would be map pressure sensor, it would be intake air temperature, throttle position sensor, and engine coolant temperature. So all of those are needed as basic sensors. So anything addition above and beyond that are definitely going to be improving our logging capabilities so we can see more data information the engine's running. And we can also take some of these particular sensors, such as a fuel pressure or a Lambda sensor, and allow that to perform advanced fuel calculations and actually feed back into the Emtron to actually take action and alter what the fuel delivery is going to be for the engine, for example. So there's going to be a lot of reasons why we probably want to add these additional sensors on. I'm going to be covering the more common sensors in this training tutorial. There is a huge list of sensors that you could potentially add in here. So if there's going to be something that I don't cover and you're confused of how to go and set something up, definitely post into the private forum. I can walk you through how to do that. But again, we're going to be covering just the majority of what you'll find in terms of a additional sensor that would potentially be something that you'd want to go and wire into your Emtron. So the first thing I want to do here is move from my tuning page, and we want to go over here to config. And under config, we're going to move our way across our sub list here into channels and then down here into input setup. Last video, we looked at setting up our basic sensor inputs. Those are things like our map pressure, throttle position, engine temperature, and intake air temperature. We also have our barrel pressure. That's going to be a standard sensor input here. That's going to be internal. There's a 1.1 bar here on my KV8 box. The barometric pressure is always important. It's going to be referencing the barrel pressure sensor so that we can always calculate proper density as the elevation changes. So that's going to be something that's essentially hard fix that we're not going to have to go in and configure and set up. But these are going to be our basic sensor inputs. Now, we're going to be taking a look first here at setting up a Lambda sensor. We have either the Lambda sensor or a narrowband sensor. Now in this case, there's almost no reason to not run a Lambda sensor. The narrowband sensors will provide some type of a feedback at stoichiometric or where the petrol fuel of 14.7 to 1 that could be used for closed loop operation. We'll get into all of that in separate training tutorials. But the Lambda sensor will be a wide band, so it can read all the way from 10 to approximately 20 to 1 air fuel, where this is really focused on just that stoichiometric or 14.7 to 1, again, just talking about petrol gas air fuel scale. So we don't necessarily want to go and even set up a narrowband sensor. We want to focus on setting up a wideband sensor. Everything that a narrowband sensor can do, a wideband sensor can do better, and it gives us a lot more data, a lot more information, and this is going to be much more useful for tuning. So this is the first thing we want to configure and set up here. Now we have a couple different options for the Lambda sensors. If we click on this, we're going to find here under input source, we have to decide what this is going to be here. So we're looking down our list. We can actually configure this as an internal sensor for the Lambda sensor. So on my KV8 box, I have two Lambda sensors circuits that I actually can wire in a wideband sensor directly to the Emtron and have that populate and work with the wideband, the actual wideband sensor itself, and we don't have to have an external gauge or a controller to run the sensor. So if we're looking down our list here, we're scrolling down, we're going to find that we have a ton of different options. So we're seeing down here we have a ton of different options. What we can do here is actually go in and configure it to work with the internal Lambda 1 here. So there's internal Lambda 1, internal Lambda 2. Now in this case, if I have an inline 4 or 6-cylinder engine, I only need one Lambda sensor. If I have a V6, V8, V10, V12 engine, and I have banks of the engine to deal with, we want to have a Lambda sensor on each bank. Now in this situation here, when we have an inline 4, inline 6-cylinder engine,
Again, we'll be just assigning it to internal.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.